left-hand part of the system. All right, I see everybody's doing that. That way there won't be a lot of feedback as I talk. And then part of what we're going to do is, because this is a new piece of the system for us also, we're going to ask you to unmute yourselves and talk, but I'm not sure if anybody, as you're clicking around, if you see a place where you can sort of raise your hand electronically, let us know, because I haven't been able to find that.
If you click the participants, it's on that like little box thing. Like a box will pop up when you click participants and says raised hand.
Oh, I see. So Ellen has
I just did it. Did it work?
Yeah, I see your hand raised.
Okay, I lowered it.
Okay, so does everybody see that? If you click on the participants, and then how do you raise your hand? Oh, I see, lower hand, raise hand. Okay, everybody practice that a little bit, because what we're going to do is in parts of, now when you see my screen, do you just see the Merrin Fellow webinar? You can raise your hand and say, yes, you do, if you just see the Merrin. Okay, good, good. Okay, I see everybody's raising their hands. Excellent, okay.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. I still haven't found the raise hand button.
If you click on Manage Participants at the very bottom of the screen, then you get a...
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, my bad.
Got it? All right. So, welcome to our first Merrin Fellows webinar. Very happy to have everybody here. We are missing 3 people that I know of because they are either in Israel running a 8th grade trip or at BBYO convention. And so we are going to be recording this webinar. Sarah's going to press record so that we can make sure that it's available so that other people that aren't on the webinar right now will have an opportunity to listen to the webinar and be involved in it, because a lot of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to refer back to as we continue our time together over the next many months. So here's some pictures from us when we were all together here in New York. And I have referred back to these pictures and also to our 10X membership secret society kind of logo. And I have to tell you, I sent the picture to Seth and he loved it. So he said, this is definitely something I'm going to keep, which I thought was really cute of him. So since we were together, I have done some traveling, and I've been in Toronto. I was there for a week launching the talent management program. Oops. Somebody unmute themselves?
It's me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Just mute yourself so that we don't. There you go. Okay. And I was also in Tampa. We had an executive directors conference that ended last week, and there were about 80 or so executive directors, and I got an opportunity to talk to some of your executive directors about the Merrin program and about you, so that was a really exciting thing. And so does anybody have anything exciting that they've been doing in the last 4 weeks that they would like to tell us about? If you do, raise your hand and then I'll call on you and you can then unmute yourself. Any programs, anything family oriented, some good news at your J, anything you want to share? I see Jordan has a hand up.
I'll go first, I guess, because I'm with Jordan. I think a lot of people know, but I've started my green card application, so I'm hopefully going to be here permanently. And I did a lot of traveling for work, England, Latvia, Mexico, all hiring staff for this coming summer. So finally now back in the swing of things.
And as far as the JCC goes, many of you know
I was in charge of the youth theater program for the first time this year, which was absolutely amazing. And we blew all numbers out of the park that we ever imagined could have been possible. And we almost sold out our last show. So we were very excited with how successful that program was this year. And we put on Peter Pan. So it was a lot of fun.
Terrific. Congratulations to both of you. It sounds like you've been very busy. Anybody else want to chime in and let us know what they're doing or have been doing? I see Danny's hand is up. Danny, unmute yourself.
I just want to say I just hired a full-time assistant director for the first time of our summer camp, which is very exciting for me, at least. That's it.
Good. That should be very helpful to you in all the work that you've had on your plate. So that's terrific. Katie's hand is up.
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Oh, hi, Rich.
Oh, it was annoying.
Okay, I'm glad you can hear us. Now you have to put yourself on mute.
I don't want to. I want to just talk today.
Okay, Katie, go ahead.
So we are obviously hosting the Maccabi games, and we've gone through some highs and lows here in Birmingham with it. It's not like Maccabi doesn't have a huge legacy in Birmingham, so we're trying to build that, and we struggled a lot with our local delegation. And as of this morning, I have 39 local athletes, which is huge for us. So we're hoping to get about 20 more in there, but 39 is a really good spot to be, and we're excited about it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good job. Thanks. Rich, did you want to say something now that you figured it out? You got to unmute yourself first. Okay.
What are we sharing? I didn't get a chance to hear.
We're sharing something that we are proud of or that happened in the last month since we've been apart.
Yeah, I got promoted last week.
Woo. What's your new title?
I am now the School Age Services and Day Camps Director.
Excellent.
So I was the Associate Director, and now I'm the Director.
Congratulations. That's great. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I see one more. Hannah has her hand up.
So I'm really excited. We are working on our preteen teen Madrachim program. And so I sat down with some of my 4th and 5th graders yesterday who are part of our preteen kind of like bridge program. And they drafted a letter to our preschool teachers and director detailing exactly how they want their program to look and how and what they need to accomplish it. And the kids were like, "Oh, I'll type," and they all jumped right in, and it was really, really cool to see how they worked it out. They have like 1 shift a week. They have how they want their training to look. They want an interview process with applications. It's really cool.
That's great. Sounds like a lot of work, but it sounds like a good program. Thanks.
I'm really excited.
Good. All right. So if I can figure out how to make my screen advance. There we go. All right. This is what we're going to be covering today while we're together. We have Danny's going to do a Devar Torah. Then we're going to dive into the leadership styles that you watched the webinar about. We're going to do a Hevruta call, which is a partner call, and then you're going to report back. I'll explain how all that works. We're going to talk about what your March homework assignment is and about our April webinar. And then I will have an announcement about where we're going to be meeting, and then we'll also finish up with talking about Israel. So, Danny, my man, you're up with your Devar Torah. Thank you so much for volunteering. Unmute yourself and tell us what you got.
All right. Let me pull it up real quick. All right. So, gonna try and, there we go. This past Shabbat, Jews the world over read from Beshalach, the book of Exodus. It begins with the Israelites having just left Egypt, cornered between the Sea of Reeds and 600 of Pharaoh's finest chariots. A frustrated Moses called out to God, "Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt, saying, 'Let us be, and we will serve the Egyptians, for it is better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness?' It was at the last moment, just as all hope seemed lost, that the seas opened, and the children of Israel were able to cross to safety. I read over this portion of the story many times in preparation for this Devar Torah. I could tell the Exodus story back and forth at this point in my Jewish education, but I'd never really thought about the unique predicament the Israelites faced. I figured it was a given. There could be no worse fate than slavery. I believed they must have wanted to get out, no matter the difficulties that lay ahead. Of course, it was quite the leap of faith in Moses and in God that the Israelites chose to leave Egypt. Despite enslavement, the Israelites had lived in Egypt for generations, and in many respects, it was their home. Now, Moses had put them directly in harm's way. Was it worth it? Just like most, if not all of you, my ancestors faced a similar question. Stuck in between warring nations at the turn of the century, watching the continuing rise of anti-Semitism. The same question that left the ancient Israelites' lips at the banks of the Red Sea rattled through the Jewish community for most of the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries. Is it not better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness? Luckily for me, my ancestors, like the Israelites, found not only the strength, but also the good fortune to continue. Ellis Island, like the opening of the Red Sea, served as a pathway to a new life and changed the course of Jewish history. As Jews, the story of the immigrant is our story. Once we were strangers in Egypt, Babylon, Persia, Europe, and even Israel. Now, in 21st century America, it is arguably the safest time in our history to be Jewish. Free to live wherever we'd like, practice however we'd like, and marry whomever we'd like. We can belong to Jewish community centers, join Jewish youth groups, and openly celebrate Jewish holidays. This position of privilege did not come easily. Just like our ancestors in Egypt faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles, so did our ancestors in Eastern Europe, in Germany, and Iran. It took grit and a determination to make a better life for their offspring, but it took a lot of help. Today, we face one of the greatest attacks on American values of our time. An immigration ban based on race, religion, or nationality is not only wrong, it's un-American. The story of the American Jew is the story of the American dream. In 3 generations, the Jewish experience in the US has shifted from penniless refugee to privileged class. We know better than anyone what's at stake. I'm left thinking about 2 quotes, both old, but one new to me. The first is a Jewish proverb that Angela Duckworth quotes in Grit. Fall 7, rise 8. Since I have read those words last month, they have stuck with me. How better to teach our program participants the story of the Jewish people than with that quote? When we fall, we always rise again. Not just the first, but the 7th, 8th, and 9th times as well. How better to pass on empathy for those who need help than to remind ourselves that we too have fallen in our past. The second is from Pirkei Avot. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. The task is overwhelming, but still, we must first take the step into the sea. Thanks.
That's excellent. Thank you, Danny. Very good. Lots of rich information in there, and I really appreciate you putting the time into doing it and giving us that very important story. So thank you very much. Okay. So I'm not sure if we're going to get this poll to work, but we might. And that would be, Sarah is trying to see if she can launch the poll. But basically, when we watched the webinar, the rabbi in the webinar talked about the leadership styles of Moses and Joshua. And so I just want to hear from you. What leadership style do you typically emulate? Are you totally a Moses? Are you sometimes a Moses, sometimes a Joshua, or the other way around? Are you a real mix of the two, depending on the situation? Or are you totally a Joshua in all of your leadership style? And Sarah, do you think you can launch the poll, or are we doing this in another way?
Yeah, I can't figure out how, but if everyone types their response, I could keep a tally.
Okay.
If that works.
So in the chat box, did you find the chat boxes?
Yep.
Type in what your answer is, and then Sarah will tell us what everybody's voted on. Okay.
Okay, 1 second.
Yep. We should have that Jeopardy music going on right now. Do, do, do. From what I'm seeing, it looks like a lot of D's, which is a real mix of the two depending on the situation.
Okay. The tally is 1 for B, 4 for C, and 5 for D.
Okay, thank you for doing that for us. Okay, so one person said mostly a Moses, sometimes a Joshua. 4 people said mostly a Joshua, sometimes a Moses. And 5 said a real mix of the two depending on this situation. So I'd like to hear, I don't know who the person was, the person that answered mostly a Moses, but sometimes a Joshua. Who was that? Unmute yourself and tell us why you picked that.
That was me.
Okay.
And I hope that I'm remembering correctly what his exact definition was. But the reason I chose that one is because I was thinking more like exactly what I am and not what I hope to be. And I think sometimes, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but he was talking about how Moses kind of had to be that like strong, like one person leader. And you know, sometimes I feel like I default into that mode a bit. Okay.
Yes, you're correct. As a refresher, Moses was, if you think about it, was that one person leader. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes in a couple of slides. And Joshua was more of a person who gathered people around him to sort of make group decisions. That's sort of the very simplistic definition or differences of the two. So thanks. And how about somebody in the D group, a real mix of the two depending on the situation? Tell us which situation you might find yourself being one or the other. Who wants to unmute themselves and tell us about that? Somebody take a stab at it. Unmute yourself. Okay, Katie, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
I said, sorry, we were in the D's, right? Was
Yes.
that correct? Okay. I said I was a mix of the two, and I think Danny kind of touched on it. I think I'm striving to be more like Joshua, but depending on who I'm working with, I still feel I take that Moses role a lot. I find often my teens are so focused. They talked about how Moses was all about the destination and Joshua was all about the journey. And I feel like so many times my teens are so focused on getting to the program and they don't take the time to focus on the step-by-step planning and what they're gaining from that. They just focus on that destination so much. So it's hard for me trying to be Joshua when they're just trying to have me be Moses, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Very often people, especially who, you know, they're all over the place, they just want somebody to make the decision and they may be looking to any one of you to be the leader. But what we're trying to do is to build the leadership characteristics of each of them and have them figure out how to either be that leader or build consensus to grow their leadership skills. So that's great. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide, and we're going to talk about the webinar a little bit, the Ellie Talk a little bit more. So here's a couple of quotes that really talk about taking a look at sharing leadership. So being a leader is not a solo enterprise. Leaders, after all, need to have followers in some point in order to be a leader. And Peter Drucker is a long-time management scholar, and he has lots of wonderful books out there that are very timely, no matter whether we're in 2017 or when they were written in the 1900s, the late 1980s and 90s. Another statement here, similarly, all leaders have others who will impact their own leadership style and success. whether it be a peer or a co-director or somebody you work closely with, a lay leader or lay committee, a colleague at a partner organization, or even your supervisors and subordinates can share in the leadership role and responsibilities. And there's multiple touch points with whom we can share our vision. So how do we share leadership effectively? What are the different styles that we use through our own Jewish lens, and what does the Jewish world sort of say about this? And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Part of the things that we're going to do today is I'm going to have you break into pairs, and you're going to call each other. And these are some of the things that we're going to talk about. And I have a bunch of other questions that I'm going to sort of give you as your talking points as well. In the webinar, in the Eli talk, when the rabbi was talking about a few of his, the lead up stories, there were a few key points he weaved through the entire talk. In the story, he tells about his wife and the women who band together to make a change in the medical testing systems, which is an amazing, remarkable story in itself. But then he talks about the Moses and the Joshua strategies, and there's a few things in common that sort of jumped out at me. The first thing is that there was a need, whether it was a need because of a tragedy, or because we're running from slavery, or because we're migrating to a new land. There was a need in any one of these ways that people assumed leadership. And they all joined forces of one way or another. The women and the mothers joined forces. Moses had God as his partner to lead the people, but he also had Aaron as a spokesperson for him, because as we read, Moses was not a very good public speaker. And so he needed Aaron to be his public speaker. And then we also learned about Joshua, who was the leader and led the people to cross the Jordan River and to get to another land. But he also was very collaborative in the way that he brought people along rather than just demanding because God told him to say something. He really empowered the people to make decisions and to bring them into the conversation and to move people into understanding his vision. So how we bring people along to our vision and style is really essential to our success. So whether you are the director of teens or camp or after school or working with teens in BBYO, you have a vision for your program, and you have specific ways that you want your program to run. And so you should be setting goals, and you should be having that vision. And the vision also sort of like builds into the JCC overall vision for whatever your JCC's vision and mission is. But my question is, how do you share your vision, and what are you doing to make sure that people that work with you, or the teens that maybe that you hire, or the teens that you supervise in a teen program, how do they understand what your vision is so that you can collectively, you as the leader, whether it's your Moses or Joshua style, or collectively figure out how to move forward for success? Establishing a shared vision and developing a collaborative model, it might just be that secret. And what I'd like to see is if one or two of you could chime in and tell us, how do you tell other people what your vision is, and how do you model that as you work as the leader of your program? So raise your hand, and I will call on you to unmute. Okay, I see Jordan has her hand up.
It's Jason.
Okay.
I would say by leading by example, by them seeing, if it's your staff, seeing you out, whether it's in camp or other programs, allowing them to emulate the way you treat people, the way you come across, setting the example yourself, and then hoping that crosses over to your staff.
Okay, those are all very good ways. It's as Danny had said originally, it's one of those things. Sometimes we get into that mode of we just need to tell people what to do, but I think you're right in having people show us show what you mean by the way that you're acting. So that's good. Thank you. Who else would like to raise their hand and talk? Lauren.
So something that we did that was really kind of straightforward with staff orientation is we have our every child philosophy that we talk about in the handbook, and it's something that we talk about throughout camp. It's kind of like a little poem about how every child is different, has different needs. They deserve our best. So for many years, everyone got in every child's shirt. So we still do that. But something that we did last year to kind of keep that vision front and center is we put it on the back of everyone's name tags. And it was a really small, simple thing, but staff talked about at the end of the summer how that really kept them focused on their main mission at camp. So that's something that we're going to do again. Really simple, but actually had an impact.
That sounds great. Thanks for sharing that with us. And we have time for one more. Who else would like to tell us? I see Rich's hand is up.
Hello. So one of the things I realized from my staff here, something that helps them be successful is structure. Kind of having like a set rules and set things in place to help them be successful. So one of the things we're doing, which I'm sure many of you have in your programs, are daily report forms. So like actually tracking children's behaviors, especially for camp, for the teens who are brand new to being a counselor, who might not be able to really who might not really be able to understand like how to discipline kids the best way. Providing just a simple form that has like, how was so-and-so's day-to-day, excellent, average, poor, and to be able to write it down is a really good way to kind of start thinking about children's behaviors. And then having conversations with their unit leaders will help them figure out how to manage it. So that's something I thought was interesting.
That's good. Do the staff like doing it? They like you?
I think that they enjoy participating in something that helps their group be more successful. You know what I'm saying? So like the fact that they are given an opportunity to communicate with their unit leader every single day about their children, they know that like an issue just isn't being cast aside. Like they are filling something out every day. They are being active in trying to fix a potential problem in their group. And it's helping them grow as the leader of their group by working with the unit leaders in fixing those problems.
That's great. I could see it also being used in after school and in other ways. That's terrific. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
So each one of them, Moses and Joshua, had specific main attributes in their leadership style. Who wants to take a stab at diving into a little bit what Moses's leadership style was? We talked about it briefly, but who can really flush it out and give us I see Hannah's hand is up. Is that for now or from before?
It's for talking about Moses. Is that okay? Sorry, I raised my hand.
That's good. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think that Moses is very much is very directive, and he also does a little bit of like fear tactics. If you don't leave now, you're not going to get out, that kind of thing. But I almost argue that he has to be. Like there's so much in the text about how the Israelites are so back and forth and how they feel about leaving, and there's not like a cohesive group opinion in the way that it seems like there is when Joshua's leading. And I think that this may be an issue that a lot of us face, where there's some moments where there's a lot of opportunity for collective work, and then there's some moments where we just need to step up and like give what the directive is.
Mm-hmm. Good. Okay, and thank you. Let's see, who would like to talk about Joshua's leadership style? Raise a hand if you're ready. Megan. We see your face, Megan. Can you chime in?
Yeah, so Joshua is way more empowerment of the group, so trying to come to a group consensus. And I think his environment kind of sets him up for that, kind of like what Hannah was talking about. He just has this natural group consensus of like what the next step is, so he's less of the vocal role of like, this is what you have to do, and more of the like, okay, I need you to help me with this, and you can take this part and your talents can be used over here. And so finding the strengths of different people, I think, is more of his leadership style, and being able to utilize those within the situation. So instead of him being the leader, he's taking the time to build the other people as leaders too. Even though they're looking to him, he realizes that he doesn't have to be the only leader in the situation. He was just who was designated.
Right. I like what you just said about finding other people's strengths and letting them sort of shine in that way and move towards the work that would help them based on their strengths. So that's a very, very good point, and something that we should think about as we're working with other staff and working with the teens. Sometimes we task people with something that's not their strength, and then we sort of dismiss them for not doing a good job with something. But that may not be the case. Maybe it's just something that they are uncomfortable doing. It's not their strength. They don't know how. They don't know how to ask for help. And so as we work with especially teenagers who are really starting to build their strengths, it's really important for us to remember that not everybody's good at everything, and just because they were good at something a couple of weeks ago, maybe they're not so good at it now, or vice versa. And so how do we continue to build on their strengths? Because the number one important thing that we have to keep remembering is that we want to build success. We want people to feel good about coming to our programs. We want them to feel good about being staff in the programs that we run. And in order to do that, they have to feel successful. We have to understand, what do they want to get out of the program, even if it's that the teen is there for a job. Is it just a job? Is it just a paycheck? Why are they picking the JCC, and what do they feel like they're going to get out of it? And sometimes when we're hiring for camp or for after school staff or for lifeguard staff or whatever it is, they're coming to us as a job, but there's a reason that they're picking. They could go to McDonald's. So why are they picking to come to the JCC, and how can we help develop whatever those skills are that they're interested in growing? And the only way we're going to find out is if we have conversations with them. And I know teenagers, they're sort of not in their head about stuff like this, but it's an important thing that we have those conversations, and we try to figure out what are their strengths and how can we continue to grow their strengths so that they really enjoy the time that they are with us. So thinking about modern day, can someone think about a modern day example of either Moses or Joshua? Everybody's shy. What's going on? Or maybe not so modern day. Okay, Rich. I see Rich's hand up.
I keep forgetting to unmute, sorry.
Okay.
So thinking about modern day, I mean, somebody who, I think what Hannah was saying about kind of reading based off of fear, I mean, I think that's something that we're seeing a lot nowadays, with Brexit and obviously, Trump and what's going on in France and a lot of different countries kind of trying to lead their people, but by kind of using this tactic of like, look at what's happening, like do this and everything will be better. I think it's a little bit different back then. I mean, I think Moses, there was an actual fear factor. I mean, the Jews were slaves in Egypt. They did need to get out because it was really dangerous. I'm not sure circumstances are quite the same nowadays. But that's what I kind of immediately thought of when you asked the question.
Good. Okay. Thank you. That's good. And somebody else? Seth.
Well, I'm hoping you moved on to the modern day Joshua.
Yes, you can do Joshua.
Okay, so I took sort of what Rich did with today and Moses and then brought it back to what we just lost a while ago. So Danny, don't cry. But I'm thinking of like the former, President Obama, I feel very much dealt with the idea of like building on strengths of other people. And he wasn't being as much of a, fear tactic leader, that he really, I think, tried to open up and figure out what was available to him and how he can make the people in his administration that much stronger, which then therefore made us stronger. And I think it's kind of the opposite of what Rich was saying now with what we have currently, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. That does make sense. I didn't necessarily want this to be a political conversation, but in the climate of what's going on in the United States and the fact that you're probably having some conversations with teens about what their feelings are, and at your JCCs, I know a lot of JCCs aren't taking any kind of political stance, but some are, and some are having those, they're being the conveners for those conversations. And it's certainly, if it's something that is important and happening at your JCC, you need to have those conversations with your supervisors about how can we have these conversations in a safe and productive way. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to break off into groups. And I've listed here, color-coded. So the best thing I think would be for the top person to call the bottom person. So Jordan would call Megan, and Ari, I don't have your cell phone number, so Rich would, Ari, would you call Rich? Seth and Lauren, Katie, Jason, and Hannah figured out how they're going to all get together. There's 3 of them. And then Deborah called Danny. And I want you to keep an eye on the time. We have, what is it? It's 37 after the hour right now. So at 45, so you've got about 6 or 7 minutes, call each other and talk about your leadership style as it compares to Joshua and Moses. And if there's any kinds of conflicts or issues that come along with the way that you lead your leadership style. And then I want you all to come back at a quarter of, okay? Okay, finish up your calls. We have 1 more minute. Okay, it's time for everybody to come back. So say goodbye to your friends. Is there anybody that wants to share with us what you and your partner talked about? Anything you learned, anything you heard as you chatted with your partner? Megan.
So Jordan and I kind of talked about how in the webinar, like Moses is this like gets this bad rap of like this leadership style isn't as desired as Joshua's style, but that there's certain situations where it makes more sense to have more of like a Moses leadership style. And so we find times that we're both of these leadership styles, and that we love to engage our teens and our staff, but there's times and places where we just have to make a decision and say like, this is the way it is because I am in charge. And so like, it's really tough for us to do that because we've built this relationship, which is required for like Joshua's leadership style. It means you have to build a comfort level with people and have those relationships and conversations that you feel like you can connect. So it's hard for some people to like hear when you have to be a more directive leader when they're used to more engagement. So that it's kind of hard to balance those two things out sometimes, but.
That's good, and it's a good thing to point out. That's great. Okay, Rich.
So Ari and I were talking about how we're both kind of primarily Joshua's, but how sometimes you have to be a Moses. But I was also, we're talking about, I'm wondering if there's like a power of persuasion piece in here, right? So like if collaborating is the way that you like to operate, like for me, I like to collaborate on everything just because it's not worth my time doing something that nobody else wants to do. I definitely want people's input. And I want people to feel like they have buy-in, because when they feel like they have buy-in, they do their job better and we all work better together because everyone feels like they're part of the team. But wondering if there's this piece in there, this kind of unsaid piece that like as the leader, which I feel like is the key word, does it make you, does it mean that you have Moses qualities because you like come up with the plan and then involve people in the plan? Because if you come up with the plan, like you are the leader, and that would be like kind of a Moses style thing. Like, all right, here's the plan, here we go. But if you say, okay, here's the plan, here you go, what do you guys think? You know, like who wants to do this, or who thinks, like who has any ideas? Like, are we mixing leadership styles, or is it just kind of like an element within the Joshua realm?
In my opinion, I think it is mixing leadership styles, and I think that there is a time, as Megan said, for you to say, nope, I'm the leader, this is important, we have to do it my way. Certainly in situations where safety is a factor, you are the leader and you just have to say, this is the way it's going to be because we need everybody to be safe. But when you have the opportunity to mix your leadership styles, whether it's come up with the plan and then say, okay, who's on board, which piece do you want to do? Or you get consensus from everybody where they all come up with a plan. I also think that timeliness might play a factor because, you know, you can't have 15 teenagers sitting around the room trying to decide what they're going to do next weekend. You know, sometimes we need to give them 1 or 2 choices and then let them vote and decide how that's going to happen. So it's a good point that sometimes it is the power of persuasion. And last, Ari.
I was just gonna piggyback on that. I think these are interesting examples because the plan is the same in both, and neither of the leaders, with Moses or Joshua, are the ones who came up with the grand plan. They're both enacting the same plan, and they're taking different approaches to it based on the people that are following them, and maybe a little bit based on who they are. But I think more so based on how far they themselves can actually take. I mean, quite literally, how far they can take the people who are following them. One interesting thing that Rich and I talked about was, and what I think relates to all this is has to do with the idea of how sometimes I was saying that I myself am a little bit of a Moses sometimes, and we talked about how there might be ways that one can be a Moses, but not when it's needed, but not make it feel like that person is being the Moses, and to bring in those sort of bring an attitude to the situation, or bring in always remember to use certain tactics to make people feel like they are being brought into the situation, even if it is me as a leader taking a hold of this myself, and that does and not making them feel excluded from that, and still be working towards that end goal of shared vision, collaboration, and all those other things that sort of make our programs run more efficiently and better.
Yeah. Good point, Ari. Thanks. And the Jordan hand is up, I see. I'm not sure whose hand it is.
Jason.
Okay.
I was just going to add, similar to that, I mean, in the setting that I work with teens, being in a sleepaway summer camp, they're automatically going to be exposed to the different leadership styles because of the way they're broken up, and they have different supervisors. So I think that in a way is its own challenge, where I'm trying to give support to our teens who are getting these different leadership styles thrown at them and different support structures. And some of them thrive under their structure, and some of them need that extra support. So personally, I'm trying to find that balance where I bring them all together, and when we're doing programs all together, trying to fill in the void there. So I guess it's a little similar but different in the sense that they're already exposed to all those different leadership styles.
Yes. Right. And in many ways, the teens that are at camp do take direction, or do have a variety of different leaders telling them the way things are. And I think that's really important. Okay, let's move on. In the interest of time, I want to make sure that I keep us on track. So here's our friend Peter Drucker again. He talks about leaders have followers, but that doesn't mean we can't share leadership with those that are following us. And I think that relies back to what Rich was talking about sort of like a hybrid of the two. In the Harvard Business Review, I read, no leader is perfect. The best ones don't try to be. They concentrate on honing their strengths and find others who can make up for their limitations. So that's sort of, hold on a second, my phone's ringing and it's really loud. That's sort of the, the Moses example of finding Aaron to be his spokesperson, but I'm sure that there are situations where we can also enlist somebody that has similar views, but may be able to spread the message in a different way. And then President Reagan was known to be a wonderful collaborator. And he said the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He's the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. And he also really was talking about his own leadership style and hiring the right people and allowing them to do their work. And that was one of the things that he sort of, in his time was how he empowered people. So as we move beyond this piece, I want to just leave this with you about Moses and Joshua, and have you continue to think about it, and have you try to figure out a way that you can bring this story to the teens that you work with, and have these conversations about when is a top-down approach the appropriate way of doing things, and when is a collaborative approach the best way to handle something, and see what they think. Because very often I think that they feel like a lot of their life is top down. Somebody's telling them what to do. Their teachers are giving them assignments. Their parents are telling them what to do. Their coaches are telling them what to do. And we really want to build strong leaders, and we want them to understand the difference between the leadership styles as well. So I welcome you to have those conversations with them. So as we finish up, I'm just keeping an eye on the time. I want to make sure that we're respectful of everybody's time. Your March homework, we will email it to you. You will meet in small groups. We had set up those small groups at the end of our time together when we were here in New York last month. And so what you'll do is you'll meet in your small group after you either read or watch your homework assignment. And in the homework assignment, there'll be some things to discuss. And then one of you will write up a summary and then send it in to us in representation of your group. So I don't need everybody to write up the summary, but one person, and all of those instructions will be in the email. And then in April, on April 6th, that's maybe a new date for you. I'm not sure if we had sent that out yet, but April 6th at 1 o'clock Eastern is our April webinar. And that is going to be with Scott Asselon. He is one of our master teachers, and he has worked directly with Angela Duckworth. And as a matter of fact, he was meeting with her last week. So by the end of March, it would be best if you have read the book Grit through chapter 8. And Scott will be sending out some questions to ponder and some ideas and big thoughts that you will be working on in the webinar when we meet again in webinar on April 6th. And so those are the two upcoming sort of announcements and homeworks. And then we have April 30th to May 3rd. So we will be in Tucson, Arizona. Not Tucson, I am so sorry. Scottsdale, Arizona, which is still Arizona. See, I saw the picture and I thought Tucson. The staff there in the Scottsdale JCC are very excited to have us. We're going to be participating at their JCC in some activities. We're going to be working in small groups. We're going to have an opportunity to explore parts of Scottsdale and learn from some leaders in both Jewish education and teen development and things like that. So more information will come to you in an email about how to book your travel and things like that. Make sure you block April 30th to May 3rd. Arriving April 30th in Scottsdale, we're going to start at 2 o'clock. So start to look at what travel plans you have in order to get there and be ready to start by 2. And then don't plan your flight home until after 4, if possible. I'm planning on us working together through lunch and ending it around 1:30 or 2 o'clock. So that sort of gives you the parameters for that. And then the last piece of it is information about Israel. I've been working with our Israel office on our trip. We are building a really robust schedule. For those of you who have been on Birthright with me, it's not as strenuous as the Birthright trips have been, but it is nonstop action and nonstop meetings and high-level meetings, which are really cool. We're looking at visiting some teen programs that are being done at local various matnas programs and meeting with some really high-level collaborators. So that's a work in progress, and I'll send you more information as I get it. Make sure you check your passport expirations. If it expires before, I forget what the date is, it has to be good 6 months after you return to the United States. And with everything that's happening with immigration, I don't want anybody to be caught not being able to get back in the United States. So please check your passport expiration dates now. Decide if you're planning on extending your trip. We need to know by June 1st. what you're planning. So if you're thinking that you're going to stay, we can help work on that with the return trip flight information, but we need to know. And we will all be departing from JFK together on October 16th. So it's October 16th, and you land, if you're not extending, you land back at JFK on the very early morning of October 27th. So those are the announcements and information about what we have coming up in the next few short weeks. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, certainly raise your hand or unmute yourself and ask away. We will be looking for somebody to do the DeVar Torah for the April webinar. So please put that in the back of your mind, and love to have somebody volunteer. Anybody have any questions about anything that we covered today or about any of the homework, any of the announcements?
Could I just say something? It's Sarah.
Yeah, hi, Sarah.
Hi. I'm still waiting on a bunch of your reimbursements from the first seminar. If you could please just urge your accounting department to send them, or at least give me a heads up on when I should expect them. They just keep asking me, so I would appreciate that.
Thank you. And you all will be working with Sarah on all kinds of information regarding the Scottsdale program and the Israel flight information and everything else. So thank you for being in touch and on top of things with her. Any questions, any last statements, anything that you want to add? I don't see anybody's hand up.
No, okay. I do. I just didn't unmute. I have a quick question. Sorry. I know you're recording this. Can you send us the slides as well?
Yes.
Okay. That's all. Just wanted to check because I was trying to write things down and then you went to the next one really quick.
I will send the slides. No problem. Thanks for asking for that, Seth. That's great. Anybody else? All right. Well, if we look at the time, we're almost exactly on time for a 1-hour webinar. I appreciate everybody and your participation, and look forward to seeing you soon and talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Peace out.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
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 I remember my nameplate.